Hi everyone, this is Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. This is block number 2 of the Beginner's Botanical Quilt. If you are interested in seeing all the blocks involved in this quilt, then play this video all the way to the end where you will see a green screen and then click on the link in the upper left hand corner. So let's get started on this half-eaten green apple. For this quilt project, I recommend you use up the scraps that you might have in your scrap pile. If you don't have a scrap pile, then buy very small amounts of fabric, anywhere from 1/8 to 1/3 of fabric, and all of the blocks will have different colors in it. You might be able to use some of your pieces of fabric from one block into another block, or you can also buy fat quarters. Here are the size of the pieces that you will need. For the green, you will need 4 2½ inch squares, 2 3½ inch squares. For the stem, 1 that's 1 inch by 2½ inch. The yellow, 4 2½ inch squares, 2 3½ inch squares. The background, which is my white, 2 2-inch by 8½ inch, 2 4-inch squares, 2 1¼ inch by 2½ inch, 1 2½ by 4½ inch. On all 4 of the 3½ inch square background fabrics, draw a line from corner to corner. Make sure you do it on the back side. For instance, my white fabric does look a little different from the front and the back. So make sure, if that's the case with yours, you draw it on the back side. So place a ruler going from corner to corner and draw a line. Again, do that on all 4 3½ inch squares. Take those 4 background squares that you drew the line on and pair them up with 2 green and 2 yellow. Bring front sides together. Stitch 1/4 inch on each side of the line. After stitching, press the seams flat with your iron. Place the ruler back on that drawn line that you put on there and cut this in half. Then at your ironing board, have the darkest fabric facing up on top. Unfold, take your iron and press on top and make sure the seam is going towards the darkest color. Square all of the half square triangles to size 2½ inches square. Place the line on your ruler that goes from corner to corner. It's a diagonal line. Place it right on the seam. Make sure that you leave a little bit of the fabric outside of the 2½ inch square area. So mine is right here, up along here, along this edge, and along this edge. Then cut 2 sides, this one and then this one here. Take this corner and flip it to the other side. So now trim these 2 edges. Place the diagonal line on there, and this time place the 2½ inch lines on your ruler right on the previously 2 cut edges and cut the last 2 sides. Do this with all of your half square triangles. Place your squares in this order. So this row is all green with a half square triangle on each end. The next 2 rows are yellow. And let me turn this. And then you have half square triangles at each end of the rows, and make sure they're put in the proper direction. And then your last row is green, again with half square triangles at each end. Now stitch all of the squares together in each row. Bring front sides together, stitch 1/4 inch. Then add on the next block, stitch 1/4 inch. And then add on the last block here and do a 1/4 inch seam. Take the next row and stitch, the next row, and the next row. After stitching, press the seams. Press the seams on the back side first. So that means that you would take each individual seam, press it on the back side. Then after pressing on the back side, press the seams going all in one direction in the row, but make sure that each row the seams are pressed in the opposite direction. For instance, this one is going this way, this way, this way, and then this way. After pressing, then stitch the rows together. So make sure that they look like this. Bring front sides together. Match up your seams. So make sure that the seam on the bottom is going in the opposite direction than the seam on top. Then I recommend that you place a pin to hold each seam. So continue pinning all the way across, then stitch 1/4 inch seam and continue to add on the rows until all 4 rows are stitched together. After stitching the rows together, then again press the rows on the back side first. Press each row. And then on the front, a little trick I like to do to get all the rows going in one direction is to keep the block lifted slightly, and with your iron just push against it. Try not to stretch the fabric so that you force the seams all in one direction, and it doesn't matter if they're going up or going down. Place the 2.5 inch wide strips by 8.5 on opposite sides of the block. Then pin and stitch 1/4 inch seam here and here. After stitching, press the seams on the back side and then unfold and press on top. And normally I would recommend that you press towards the darkest fabric, but because these points right here are so thick, I recommend you press the seams towards these 2 strips over here. For the stem, take your piece that is 2.5 inches by 1 inch and your 2 background pieces that are 2.5 inches by 2.25 inch and bring front sides together and stitch 1/4 inch and then bring this on top, stitch 1/4 inch. Press your seams on the back side, then press on top, pushing these seams towards the stem. When done, this is what it should look like on the front, and then this is what it would look like on the back. Place the 2.5 inch strip by 4.5 inch strip on top and stitch 1/4 inch seam. And again, press the seam on the back side and then unfold and press the seam on top. And then I still would press this seam towards this side. On each side of this center block, place a 4.5 inch square background fabric. Stitch it on each side of the center block, so 1/4 inch seam. And then do the same over here. When pressing the seams here on that top row, press the seam here and here in the opposite direction of this row here. Match these 2 seams, make sure they're going in the opposite direction. The one on the bottom is opposite of the one on top. Stitch 1/4 inch seam along here. After stitching, press the seam on the back side, unfold, and press on top, and press this seam here towards the top row. The playlist for the Beginner's Botanical Quilt is at the very end of this video. So play this video all the way to the end, where you will see a green screen, and then click on the link in the upper left hand corner. If you like this video, please click on thumbs up, and also click on share to share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then click on that red button down there in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Click on that little bell and then enter your email address so that you'll receive future email notifications about my latest video. If you don't seem to be receiving those notifications, go to your cell phone, click on Settings, and set notifications in the on position. I'm Cheryl. This is Manny. Thanks again for coming by. See you next time. Happy sewing!